Hey guys, um, today we're going to do a writing lesson and we're going to start our narrative drafts. And so I pulled up my Google Classroom so that we can talk about the pieces and parts of our draft. Um, and so then you can get started working on your draft. All right, so this assignment is in classwork and it is the Tuesday assignment. In the draft, you have several parts, or in the draft assignment, you have several parts. So I'm going to go to this text structure PDF, and I'm just going to scooch over here. And we're going to talk about this today, and we're going to use our writer's notebooks, and we're going to use our story, An Angel for Solomon Singer. So this story is a narrative, and a narrative can be true um, to life, or it can be fiction. So this is a realistic fiction book, but obviously, this character in her book, this is not Cynthia Ryland, and so she has invented a character. Maybe she experienced a time in her life where she was lonely, but then she created a character to tell the story in a different, with a different setting, in a different time and place. But it still has all of these pieces of the text structure. So, um, in the story, we know that Solomon is living in the hotel for men, and he doesn't like it very much. There's things that he wants, like the balcony and the fireplace. And he wanders around, and he just really is unhappy living in this new place. Well, through his wandering, if you remember, in the middle, he comes to the Westway Cafe, and this is where he meets Angel. And Angel is the waiter that kind of, makes him feel at home. And it doesn't happen right away. But over the course of many, 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 many months, remember the moon page where we talked about he would go in there every night over and over again? Over time, he starts to feel comfortable in New York City. And it talks about how things began to be familiar and he started to like them. And it started to remind him of his home in Indiana. And so by the end of the story, we learn that if you're ever in need of a friend, that you should pop over to the Westway Cafe, and Angel and Solomon will be there to chat with you and make you feel right at home. So in this story, we notice that there's a clear sequence of events. We start with that beginning and that middle and that end. And so what we did last week was we started collecting. So in your writer's notebook, we started doing this page with our selecting. And so, our character and setting page, that's going to be our beginning. And then down here at the bottom, those were our events. And that's where we put that problem and solution. We also did another page, the movement over time page. And this page will be a really good page for you to think about your scenes and the direction of your story from beginning down to end. Okay, so you can do your beginning where you introduce your characters and your setting. You can choose your point of view. So you could have your story start with the point of view where it's first person and you have a character in the story tell the story. So in my winter campout story, my main character was the mom. And so my mom character could tell the story like this. Oh, it is such a busy day today. I am so busy packing for our winter camping trip. The sun is shining. I hope we have enough blankets and food to last through the weekend. Hey boys, let's get our stuff in the car. It's almost time to go. Or I could start my story with a narrator looking at the scene and talking about the characters using their names. So this would be a third person. So I could have the narrator say, the Frank family was getting ready for their winter campout trip. It was their first time camping in the winter, and they had not camped many times before that. So Mrs. Freck was feeling very worried about whether or not they had enough stuff. So you can do it first or third. What I would caution you to not do is start it as if you were talking to your audience. We don't want to start our story with, "Hey, my name is Tisa. Let me tell you about my winter camping trip." Cynthia Rylant doesn't really start her stories like that. You want to start your story as if it was something that Cynthia Rylant would write. And so we need to think about how other stories start. So you want to start with introducing that character and that setting. Maybe have a character say something to another character, or start with your transition words. One day, the Freck family was going camping. So then in the middle, you definitely want to have, well, let me not skip ahead. Hang on, I won't skip to that part yet. Rewind. All right, so we want to introduce that character and setting. That's going to be our beginning. All right, while you're working through those events, getting from your beginning point to your ending point, you want to use some transition words. And I put a list in the assignment. So here's a list of transition words. Now, I know that you've been using transition words in your stories since you were in first grade, maybe even kindergarten. But what we want to do is we want to think about moving past our first, then, next, last, or the very much a no-no in fourth grade. The first I did this, then 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 I did this, and every transition word is a then. So you want to be purposeful. You want to think about those transition words so that they are varied and they're purposeful and they make sense to the story. For example, in Angel for Solomon Singer, she uses transition words like walking into the Westway Cafe, rounding the corner off Columbus Avenue. So they're very purposeful, and it moves the reader through the story. And slowly and quietly with time. Boom, I know that time has passed as the reader. Another one, for many, many nights. It's showing me the sequence of time. And so here's a list. Some of these you can even change a little bit. Like this, a few minutes later, you could change minutes to months or years or days. And so try to use some of these time words like that will move your reader through the story. So that would definitely go with that sequencing page that we did, movement over time. You may want to add those transition words over here instead of having the beginning and then the end. Then see how I did then, next, after that. I'd want to change some of those transition words to match the ones on this list. Now we can go to the middle. So in our story, make sure that you have a definite problem that your character is going to face. Remember, in my story, on that first page in my writer's notebook, not the first page, but the first lesson page, my mom character, she was scared of the dark. And so all of those events are going to happen in the middle. And then finally, she's going to realize that morning is here and we made it through the night and there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. So we want to have that problem. We want to have that definite sense of, what am I going to do about this? What is my character going to do when faced with this situation that they are, worried or they're scared or they don't know what to do? In this book, he was lonely. How does he get unlonely? He makes a friend. So make sure that your story has a definite problem and solution. And finally, we want to provide a conclusion that follows from the narrated experience or events. So we want an ending that really finishes up the story. Now, more about that on Friday because we have a whole lesson on the endings of your stories. So before we go, I'm going to go to the Friday lesson, which you guys can't see yet. And I'm just going to pull up this rubric. And so on Friday, you'll be able to see this, but I wanted you to see where we're going with this. So we have a scoring sheet of 4, 3, 2, 1. So basically the 4s are going to be about, a grade of A. And then the 3s will be about a grade of B. And then the 2s are going to be our C's. And then our 1s are going to be our D's. I promise that I will look after you and keep you out of this CD range, and I'll be giving you suggestions and giving you advice on how to move yourself into that A or that B range. So we won't focus our stuff here. We won't focus our talk down here today. We're gonna start in the B section because this is what I really want to see that you've done. If you're up at the 4 level, then you're going a little bit beyond the B level. So I'm going to let you read those on your own. If you want an A, you need to read those, and we'll talk a little bit about what the difference between a B paper and an A paper is. Okay, so we want to have a focused idea. We want to have a main point. We want our reader to know why they're reading this story. Make sure that you have a lesson in your story that the reader can take away from after they read it. Okay, and then we want to have our details. So this is the one I'm mainly looking at for this ideas and purpose lesson. Did you take the connections or the collecting lessons? Did you take ideas from there and add them to your story? We did a whole page of visualizing details. We went ahead and put in our adjectives. We put in our conversations. So I want to see evidence of this under this ideas and purpose. We did part of a lesson on figurative language. So I should see evidence of that in your ideas and purpose. Did you put that stuff that we collected into your story? Will I be able to find that? Okay. So the next section is organization. So this is what we're doing kind of with our drafting. The story has a beginning, it sets the stage, the readers can follow the events. So an A paper, you're going to have a beginning that really hooks the reader, gets them excited, gets them motivated to read that story. It's going to be a little bit more powerful than just one day the Frank family went camping. That's going to be a B level. To get an A, we need to be a little bit more powerful than that, a little bit more descriptive, a little bit more purposeful. Okay, so in the middle, and then the other part of that is that you have that clear sequence of events. So I'm getting all in there with my problem and my solution and all my events. So this is like beginning, middle. Then this gray line right here, this is the transition word line. So are you using first, then, next, last, which is kind of boring and dull? That's going to earn you probably more of this C range. Or if you have very few, if you have some, or this is many, meaningful, and varied. So you're going to use a lot of transition words to move your reader through the story. You're going to have at least, I'd say 4 to 5, because if this is a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, so the last one, and I won't talk too much about this, I'll talk about it again on Friday, is that you have an ending that wraps up the story. So we go from all the way to a writer who has no ending at all, to a writer that has a thoughtful, intentional ending that leaves the reader satisfied. And by satisfied, I mean they feel like they have learned the point of the lesson. They have learned what they should or should not do based on what your character in your story has done about whatever problem they had. So you have a really clear problem and solution for that ending. Okay? So just because you get to the end of your draft, that does not mean we're finished with these stories. So we have more stuff to do with this. So absolutely, positively, don't turn this paper in. I will know it's done because I'm going to be checking your work all the time. And every time you turn it in, you're just going to have to unsubmit it to be able to work on it again. And we're going to work on these stories multiple times. And so, Friday, when I ask you to start working on your work, if you've already submitted it, you're going to have to unsubmit it to be able to work on it again. So don't turn this in. I will be able to check your work as you are going. All right, so let's look at one more thing before we end. Okay, so in the lesson, you are going to have your work. You are going to have your work probably somewhere up here to the right, and it'll say your work. Or if you're on the iPad, it'll be down at the bottom, and it'll say, if you click on view assignment, then you're going to see the narrative draft that has your name beside it. So this is the template that's in the teacher version. If you are working on your iPad or working on your computer, you're going to have it in a section with your name beside it. So I'm just going to click on this one. But you would click on the one with your name. Okay, and it looks like this. So I have changed the title. Your copy will have like the word title right here. I'll show you what it looks like. I can go back in time. Watch this. Going back in time to the version history. Bam. Bam. I can go all the way back to Sunday when I made this lesson. Boop. All right. So your copy of this draft will look like this. It'll have title in parentheses and then the word by. And so you don't want the title of your story is not going to be title. So you are going to just highlight that. You're going to change it to whatever title you want. Winter Camp Out is kind of boring, so I'll maybe make that a little jazzier later. I'm not going to worry about that today because I want to start my sentences. And then beside the word by, you're going to put your name. And then my friends, you can arrow down a little bit. Make sure it's justified to the left. I shrunk the size down a little bit so your title would be big and your text would be small. For this assignment, we're not going to change fonts and sizes. Just leave it just the way I set it up. And then when we get to publishing, I'll let you make it pretty and fluff it a little bit with pictures and fonts, and we'll change, maybe the format of the text if you want it to look a little different. But for right now, we're going to have just basic, straight down the page, left to right justification, and as you're typing, or if you want to use the voice to text option, if you are on the iPad, you can voice to text, or that predictive text on the iPad is super helpful. You don't have to worry about spelling. If you see a wavy red line under your words, you can right click it and try to fix it. But you don't have to worry about that right now because editing and revising are coming up. And so today it's just a matter of getting those ideas down on the page. Please, please, please use your writer's notebook. We collected all those things. We collected 5 pages of ideas and notes for this story. So use your notebook. Use the stuff you already wrote to get on this page so that you have a super duper story. And I can't wait to read them. I'll be giving you plenty of feedback to let you know how you're doing, things I see that you need to work on, and things I see you need to add. Don't be offended. I'm just trying to help get you up there to that A and B range. If you have any questions, leave them in the private comments, and I look forward to reading your drafts. Happy writing!